Thank you so much for joining us here at the live desk. Take a look at this video that is now on your screen. For the first time in more than 3 years, federal student loan borrowers will be required to pay their monthly student loan bills 1 month from today, exactly October 1st. The loans provided relief to nearly 44 million borrowers by freezing their accounts. That started back in March of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, but interest rates start accruing again today. With that being said, I do want to turn things over to Nathan Mock. He is an associate finance professor at UMKC. And as always, Nathan, it is a pleasure to have you here at the live desk. And, I just want to jump straight into it. And I want to ask you, I mentioned the fact that interest starts back up today. Can you explain just what that piece means?
Sure. So student loans have kind of in effect been frozen in time going back to 2020. And so now the charges on those interests start to hit again starting today. And so the tab is running. The cash is starting to add up again.
And so taking interest into consideration, Nathan, I do want to ask also, because I'm sure, this is the top of mind for a lot of people right now, especially borrowers. If they do not pay their student loans back, what happens?
Well, generally not paying any loan, but a student loan, you'd end up in default. There is a ramp up period with this particular restart. So folks might avoid some of the sort of more negative consequences of not making their loan payments that you might normally see, but you'll still be racking up the amount that you owe by not paying. That's just going to kind of keep growing until you start making payments on that.
And I mentioned the fact that the payments were paused back in March of 2020, right at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's been paused ever since then. Now, once they resume starting next month, will the payments still be the same as they were back in 2020 for those borrowers?
It's a good question. And I think what I would tell folks mostly is I'd go to studentaid.gov and connect to your loan provider and see who's servicing your student loans so that we can be real sure what the payments are and exactly when the start date is. It could be the same, but also you might not remember what it is. Some people might have that information, but I would definitely check to make sure. I just had studentaid.gov up, my own account just to see what info was on there, and it'll point you in the direction of your service provider. And from there, you can start making plans.
Yeah, and I also saw that, CNN reported the fact that if you had automatic payments coming out of your account for your student loans, it's best to just go back in and check and make sure that that is still set up once these payments start. They come back up again. Now, again, Nathan, I do want to ask you, just out of curiosity, how much should a person typically set their monthly payments at right now?
It's a good question. And that's actually another reason why I definitely recommend reviewing what your payment is, because, what sort of is a payment that works for you might have evolved over time. And there are different repayment options than were available previously. Like there's income-based options now that might be a better fit for some people. But, this really goes to if you have a budget, that should give you some idea of the room you have for this, or maybe some things you might have to rearrange. And if you don't have a budget, we've got a clear idea of where your money's going every month and how much money you've got coming in. Now's a really good time to get that in order to help you decide, sort of what you have room for. Conventionally, there's like a 10-year repayment plan on these loans, but there's other options available. It's best to have a real clear idea on what works for you and your budget.
Definitely check all of your options. And, I am checking all of the comments that are coming in via social media right now during this live stream. And I have a comment here that says tears. And I think a lot of people may be feeling that way as far as borrowers go. But again, it has been paused since 2020. I do want to read these statistics really fast as we take a look at this video. 71% of students have student loan, credit card, and car loan debt. Now, 75% of students with debt are worried about paying it off. Nathan, what is your best advice for people, especially borrowers right now?
Yeah, anytime you've got a new expense, or in this case, maybe a new old expense, right? One that we've paused and had a little break from, it can be challenging and can, induce some uncertainty and anxiety about that. And, the best thing to do really is to plan and to have a really clear idea of, if you don't sort of build in a budget that has a surplus to it, we're always going to be really vulnerable to unexpected expenses. If we don't have kind of a rainy day fund set aside to help us absorb unexpected costs, and if we're not sort of spending a little less than we're saving most of the time, and in most months, then we don't really have the room to absorb these things, and so that can be challenging. And so really the only two solutions there are you can kind of cut spending in one spot, or you can make more money. And by working more hours, additional jobs, those kinds of things. And it's not always maybe the most pleasant. I understand the tears. It's not always the most pleasant answer, but really that's our best bet, is to have a real clear plan for our money, in the short term and for a longer term, and have our goals clearly in mind.
And should people be concerned about scammers right now, especially leading up to October 1st when those payments are going to restart?
Yeah, I think so. It's part of the reason, I'd stick with really official sources like whoever servicing your loan. And if you're not sure who that is, go to studentaid.gov and figure out who, is officially servicing your loan. And yeah, I'd be suspicious of people who don't kind of have already an official role in what you're doing, and go from there.
Some good advice there. Thank you so much, Nathan. And I just want to follow up with that and say that, like you said, borrowers can log in to the Federal Student Aid website to find out who is servicing their loans. They should also check to make sure that their servicer has all of their correct contact information. That is going to be essential as we head into October, the month of October, just 1 month away. Student loan borrowers can check their interest rate at studentaid.gov or with their servicer as well. As always, Nathan, it is a pleasure to have you here at the live desk. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about such an important topic today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. As we look ahead to the Labor Day weekend, we will provide you with the latest news updates. And we know that our newscast is coming up at around 4, so be sure to tune in to that as well.